Hello everyone and welcome to the weird, scary and horrible parts of humanity. Today we are looking at the execution of Abdul Kahar Othman, the first person to have been executed in Singapore since the outbreak of COVID-19. Abdul Kahar was born in 1954 in Henderson, Singapore, one of the poorest neighbourhoods in Singapore. He was one of 7 children, a Muslim, and his father was in the Army of the United Kingdom, with Singapore at the time a British territory until the 16th of September 1963, when it became a state of Malaysia before becoming the Republic of Singapore on the 9th of August 1965. Abdul Kahar's father died at the age of 40, with his mother taking on low-wage contract jobs, including at construction sites and shipyards, in order to make ends meet. The family had insufficient food and a lack of income, and he and his brothers, Abdul Muttalib and Abdul Jabbar, resorted to stealing food from coffee shops, and they did not receive a lot of education when they were younger, with his brother Abdul Muttalib stating, "My stomach was always empty. I was hungry. When you are hungry, how can you study? We had no focus to study." However, Abdul Kahar was described as a good child who took care of his siblings. He eventually married an unidentified woman. However, the pair had no children, with the pair eventually divorcing and his wife moving to Indonesia. Abdul Kahar committed drug offences as a teenager and became a heroin addict, leading him from the age of 18 in 1972 to spend time in prison, and he was forced into state-run drug rehabilitation centres. However, his cycle of crime continued, and he was eventually sent into preventative detention for 10 years in 1995. Preventative detention is a special type of imprisonment for reoccurring offenders aged at least 30 who have gained 3 previous convictions since the age of 16. The detention may last up to 20 years and does not allow for early release on parole for good behaviour. Abdul Kahar noted that during his imprisonment he had minimal support and rehabilitative support and struggled to assimilate in society. Upon his release in 2005, picked up from prison by his brother Abdul Muttalib, he struggled to get a job as he had spent more of his life in prison than on the outside, with his brother describing him as a baby, including squatting instead of sitting on sofas and chairs as he lived for so long in cells with no furniture. He was then employed by his brother Abdul Muttalib, who operated a furniture business. Doing upholstery and delivery work, he was described as a diligent and hard-working employee, but Abdul Muttalib ended up selling the business and Abdul Kahar couldn't find another job. At the time of his arrest in 2010, he was living with his mother and one of his brothers, and enjoyed a strong relationship with his nieces and his mother, who he took care of. On the 6th of July 2010, during a search by officers on the Central Narcotics Bureau, the primary drug enforcement agency in Singapore was performing searches on cars on Jurong Town Hall Road. While driving from Boon Lai Way to Jurong Town Hall, Abdul Kahar's car was checked and police found 26.31 grams of pure heroin. Anyone in possession of more than 15 grams of heroin in Singapore was considered to be trafficking at the time. This carried the mandatory death penalty. Immediately arrested, Abdul Kahar's apartment was raided, where he lived with his mother and one brother. In the apartment, 100,000 Singaporean dollars in cash was found, and another 40.6 grams of pure heroin was found. It is believed that the 100,000 Singaporean dollars were obtained from his drug trafficking operations. In his account to the police and the court, Abdul Kahar stated that he befriended a man whose name was Latif, with his last name not given, and the duo had met a few times in Malaysia. On the 6th of July 2010, Abdul Kahar alleged that he met Latif at his apartment block, and Latif asked him to keep 2 bags, one of which was blue and one of which was red, with the blue bag containing 40.64 grams of heroin kept in his apartment, and the red-coloured bag with 26.13 grams of heroin kept in his car. Abdul Kahar claimed that he had no idea that the bags contained heroin, and that he was deceived by Latif. However, with 100,000 Singaporean million found in his apartment, this claim was rejected and there was evidence that the drugs had been repackaged by Abdul Kahar for the purposes of trafficking. Standing trial at the High Court of Singapore, he was found guilty of drug trafficking on the 27th of August 2013, but his sentencing was postponed as in January 2013, Singapore had brought in reforms to its controversial death penalty laws, whereby if a drug convict was only acting as a courier or suffering from a mental illness, they would not face the death penalty and would instead be sentenced to life in prison. High Court Judge Chu Han Tek in October 2013 ruled that Abdul Kahar was a courier and gave him the benefit of the doubt, which would spare him the death penalty but would postpone his sentencing until a later date. The prosecution filed an appeal against the verdict, and in December 2014, three judges, Tay Yong Kwang, Woo Bi Lee and Chow Hik Fin, found in the Apex Court that Abdul Kahar was not merely a courier, with a retrial ordered. A retrial was ordered and he was sentenced to death by hanging on the 4th of February 2015. He was held on death row at Changi Prison and represented through his appeals by Rupert Sayer. The first appeal against the death penalty was dismissed on the 1st of October 2015, with a judicial review application filed in 2016 to challenge the public prosecutor's decision not to grant Abdul Kahar a certificate also dismissed. Sayer filed a second appeal on the 16th of August 2018 against the constitutionality of the alternative sentencing regime in the Misuse of Drugs Act, which was dismissed on the 25th of October 2018. Further applications for clemency were rejected by the 8th and current President of Singapore, Halimah Yacob. Additionally, the prosecutors confiscated his monetary benefits from drug trafficking, equating to $160,429.51, with the confiscation order granted by the High Court. Abdul Kahar challenged this decision, but the Court of Appeal dismissed his appeal on the 30th of March 2021. The saving grace for Abdul Kahar was ironically COVID-19, with Singapore not performing executions during the zenith of the pandemic, and the last execution prior to the pandemic was that of 36-year-old Malaysian citizen Abd Hilmi Abd Halim, who was executed on the 22nd of November 2019 for heroin trafficking. However, on the 23rd of March 2022, Singapore announced that it would be resuming executions, and Abdul Kahar's family was informed that he would be hanged at dawn on the 30th of March 2022, 3 days before the commencement of Ramadan. Appeals were made by human rights activists and social activists and journalists Christine Han and Kokila Anamalai, both of whom had supported and been in contact with Abdul Kahar during his time on death row. INGOs including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, as well as the United Nations Human Rights Office, also requested for the Singaporean government to spare Abdul Kahar's life and commute his sentence to life imprisonment. This was amidst a time when Singapore was facing increased international pressure against utilising the death penalty, which manifested due to Malaysian Nagayan Fran K. Dharmalingam, who is a low IQ individual and has an alleged intellectual disability, facing the death penalty in Singapore for heroin trafficking. While Abdul Kahar did not file an appeal to delay or review his execution, allegedly as he did not have access to a lawyer during his final days, during his last prison visit with Han and Kokila, on the 29th of March 2022, he informed them both that he wanted to live, which he reiterated in visits with his brother Abdul Muttalib, and he noted that he did not understand why the state of Singapore wanted to execute him. In the hours before his execution on the 30th of March, before dawn, Han and several of Abdul Kahar's supporters held a candle-lit vigil outside Changi Prison. On the morning of the 30th of March 2022, Abdul Kahar was hanged at the age of 68. His body was returned to his brother, who reclaimed it, and his funeral was conducted shortly thereafter, with his family noting in a statement that he was remembered as a gentle older brother, a doting uncle and a loving son, and that they were heartbroken at his passing. After his execution, Han tweeted, Rest in peace. We should all be ashamed of what the state did in our names today. His execution was criticised by numerous international stakeholders, including the European Union and the INGO Amnesty International, with Amnesty International calling the execution shameful. Additionally, former Prime Minister of New Zealand and chair of the Global Commission on Drug Policy, Helen Clark, spoke out against the execution. When Speaker's Corner at Hong Lim Park reopened on the 3rd of April due to the easing of COVID-19 restrictions in Singapore, a rare protest occurred to show opposition to the death penalty as a result of Abdul Kahar's execution, and Nagan France failed appeal against the death penalty, with 400 people in attendance, including Han and Analyse. Thank you for watching. Please do yourself a favour and hit that subscribe button and the bell icon to inform yourself of when new videos come out. Also, why not hit that like button and leave a nice comment? It helps more than you know, and your support is truly appreciated. Until next time, stay awesome, stay classy, be kind to everyone you meet, have an amazing day, and remember that truth is always more interesting than fiction.